Well, this will be my last video on these bellows. I have them mounted up here. I have a linkage made, which I'll explain here momentarily. And I'm about ready to light the forge. I've had the forge lit once. I'm gonna light it once again now and get my weights messed with a little more. But I'll just bring you in closer here and show you the bellows themselves. You've seen kind of how they operate. There's a rope pulling them closed that runs down the wall. And I'll show you this linkage. It ended up quite convoluted. It reminds me a little bit of a Dr. Seuss machine, you know, in the Dr. Seuss books where he has these complex things with all these various little pipes and posts and linkages and things, and that's kind of how this turned out, which is entertaining, but the functionality is yet to be determined, but here, I'll show you. So in terms of the hand-operated lever, I haven't even actually attached that point there because I haven't quite determined yet where it needs to be, but I just have a ring hanging from that I pull on, which in turn pushes this arm down, and this arm is just resting here on the actual metal lever. When I want to use my foot, like I can press that down with my foot, but not really from the height it is. I can't really to get a full stroke on this thing. That lever has to go right to the floor from where it is, which is about 2.5 feet maybe. And not real comfy to lift the old foot that high. So I can just kind of half stroke it by hand or half stroke it at the bottom of the stroke with my foot. So when I'm not using this, it just sets up here on the forge. It just kind of lifts up and hooks in there. And then we just use this. So anyway, when you press down on that lever, this rod goes through this board. It just fulcrums there. It lifts up there. Ignore that little weld. That was just tacked together to see if that angle would work. Then it attaches to that post there, which starts pushing up. I left this adjustable here. It's just a bolt through a hole that's holding it. So I can still fine tune this all. And then this is the toggle link here. Pushes up on there, which pushes up on this toggle link, braced against the wall there, against the bellows there, and that's what actuates it. So call it a cross between a 73 Winchester rifle and a Dr. Seuss whatchamacallit, and that's kind of the action we're dealing with here. So now pulling closed, I have my rope going through a pulley there. I have a grater blade hanging on it here. That's a weight that just barely closes it. So when I stop pumping, it's just enough weight that it's just barely breathing and closing. And then I have an additional, that rope, as you can see there, hits a pulley there, comes behind my tongs here, comes through this pulley here, and then I have a secondary weight here. Oh, that's bad lighting. Secondary weight here, also made with just grater blades, and I can add or subtract to that depending on how much weight I want to pull with. So sorry about the light there. Now just that weight alone isn't enough to create enough heat. It keeps the fire lit, but it's not going to create enough heat to forge anything. So by adding this one here, and this one only gets going once we're about half full. So anyway, I'm gonna light the forge and I'll set this up somewhere, and just from a few different angles maybe, and you can just watch the thing pumping, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. Well, it works. Overall, I'm really happy actually with just, it's a really relaxed way to put air to the fire. There's no noise. It's just kind of a creaking. It's interesting hearing the air going through the forge. This old blower has so much noise to it that that's really all you heard. So yeah, just hearing the air going through the fire pot is kind of neat. And my weights are pretty close, I think, to what I want. My rope has stretched already. I don't know if that showed up in the video, but that weight was only coming halfway up from the floor to the pulley, so I can shorten that about 6 inches. And yeah, it's overall pretty neat, and it's a neat way of forging. It's certainly not practical for anybody who's cramped for space, not something this size anyway. This is a monstrosity. But the upside of it being so big is, as you saw, and this is smaller material I've been working with here, but I'm hammering my whole heat away, and that weight is just finally finished coming down. And I put my work back in the fire, and the fire is still hot. Instead of picking up from where it is right now, which would be normal, at least with this crank blower, it reheats much more quickly because the fire hasn't died down as much. So now, will I use more coal this way? We'll see. But for something like making chain, I can see this really being nice because the steps involved in making, I'll maybe make a video at some point once I'm a little better at it. But you really aren't out of the fire very long, and you're back in. And if the fire is still hot and the work is still hot, it's going to be very efficient for that. So yeah, overall, this will be all you see of this in detail. It's not, this isn't meant to be a blacksmithing channel for you, for those of you that are here for vehicle stuff or anything like that. Hopefully you can forgive me this little sidebar, but it's been an interesting, I'm not a woodworker. I can do a bit, well, I can do it if I really am motivated to do it well, but by and large I want to see something created, and so I usually rush it and kind of make a, not the best job usually of woodworking. So yeah, this is all very rudimentary. With a bit of design work and refining, I could make this whole system run a lot smoother and with less friction. And honestly, this thing is really easy to work. It's very unlikely anything is going to change here from where this is right now, but the option would always be there. So anyways, thanks for your interest. Hopefully you got something out of that. If nothing else, you saw the most complicated set of bellows that's ever been created. So anyway, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them down below. And have a good Sunday.